What's up, folks? Welcome to the Eagle's Nest, and today will be a little reloading video. Now, I haven't done a reloading video in quite a while. I figure I'd risk a criticism here, but I put a community post out there about what bullet I should try on the 6-ARC AR15, that's custom freeboard. And what won was the 103 grain ELDX from Hornady. This is a ballistic tip bullet, and it's kind of aimed towards the hunting style bullet. It does the ballistic tip does aid in kind of expanding the jacket. It supposedly has a thinner jacket, but this bullet itself has a pretty high BC. It's got a G1 ballistic coefficient of 512 and a G7 ballistic coefficient of 258, so we should be able to push this pretty fast. For the powder, we will be using Lever Evolution powder. Ideally, this is what we'll be using on all the heavy grain projectiles in this caliber. This will push out the best velocity possible, and I've actually found it to be one of the best performers out of my bolt guns. So in the AR15, just so you guys are aware, there's two load publications. There's one for a bolt gun and one for a gas gun, and I will be going, as a disclaimer, I will be going above the listed max on the gas gun. And basically what that means is I will be reaching above 55,000 psi, which is recommendation on AR15. So don't win a Darwin Award, always work up your loads. I'm just basically going to be sharing my experience today and see how well we could actually push these bullets out of that custom freeboard barrel. Now, I did take the liberty to measuring a bunch of bullets with that custom barrel, and what I found when I reamed that thing out, I didn't want to limit myself. I had ability to set the freebore wherever I wanted it to. Basically, I had this thing to where I took all the bullets that I had and kind of rounded out. You can see exactly where the max overall length was. So using case overall length, not the comparator overall length, because obviously we're restricted with mag length, right? My max mag length on this rifle is 2.290 with the mags that I have. I measured out with the 105 Hornady bolt to hollow points. Max length to jam point is basically 2.255. The 103 Hornady ELDX is 2.30. So that's over mag length, but I'll explain that in a little bit. The 105 Lapua OTM CNR Ls, 2.268. The 105 Nosler RDFs, 2.302. The 58 grain Hornady VMAX, I got 2.105, and then the 100 grain Nosler soft points, 2.188. Now, from my experience on this caliber, this is a jump sensitive caliber. It's not a powder sensitive caliber. In fact, what affects the group size the most is the actual bullet jump itself. So ideally, what I found to work the best with the 120 rifles that I built last year and 20 of them this year so far, mostly in a bolt gun, is that this caliber loves to have about 20 to 25 thousandths of bullet jump. With that stated, the 103 grain Hornady ELDX, when I measured 2.300, my max mag length is 2.290. I could jump back 25 thousandths and be under mag length. So that's where we're going to start today, and we'll be starting out at 29 grains of Lever Evolution. So to go over the press, this is a Harrell's Precision press. It's made by harrellspec.com. It's about say 170 bucks. What's cool about this press is that it's kind of a mobile style turret press. It does have a C-clamp system on the bottom here. It actually can mount on any table that overhangs. There is no holes needed, no drilling needed at all. And like I mentioned, it is a turret style press. Now, it isn't as slick as my Mech Marksman. There is a little bit of slop here on the battering ram, but it does have a cam over. So I've been testing this press out quite often, and it's giving me some pretty impressive run out results. So I'm going to continue using this press for now. The only downside to it is that it doesn't have as much leverage. However, little cartridges like this little mini 6-ARC will be ideal for a press like this. So on a previous video, we shot some Hornady Black 105 grain ELDs, or basically bolt to hollow points, and got some pretty impressive groups. So I have a bunch of fired brass, once fired brass. And I didn't clean these cases at all. I tend to not clean cases a lot. Usually I'll probably clean a case every 5 reloads. More than likely, if it looks sooty, I'll just wipe it off with rubbing alcohol and make sure that the case mounts are, they don't look bad at all with a bunch of carbon buildup. Then I do prep it on the Lyman Case Prep Center, and I uniform the primer pockets. obviously trim the brass if needed, and that's all I do. I mean, you know, a lot of folks like to have a nice shiny brass. Honestly, I've been doing a lot of testing, and just something I've done for quite a while. It really isn't needed to have really shiny brand new brass like this. You know, it's not needed. Actually, the performance of the brass seems to work pretty good. I get pretty good SD numbers when the brass is kind of scuffed up. It allows the brass to do its job and grip the chamber wall, and that's exactly what it's meant to do anyway. So high polished brass, in my opinion, kind of hinders your performance and kind of increases your SDs from what I've seen. So regardless, you know, this was shot through an AR, so the case mounts are all dinged up. You know, they're kind of out of round. So I do have a full-length size and die from Hornady that I kind of backed off to kind of short stroke it. This allows me to basically just, you know, bring the case up there, kind of hit the expander ball and kind of open up the center of it. Doesn't need to be too exact. I mean, we're not really, you know, we're not brass prepping for a bolt gun or precision really. It's out of an AR. So this will still give us some pretty good results. A little bit of case lube and basically just run it through the full-length size and die. It does, if I set it up just correct, short stroking it, it'll punch out the primer as so, and that'll uniform the case mouth. Now, on a previous video, I did make a case comparator out of a barrel blank, or basically a piece of a barrel. And this was done using my own finishing reamer. So the same reamer that was used to cut the chamber of these rifles is also made to cut this comparator, which makes this tool a 3-in-1 tool. Ideally, this is probably the best way to get an accurate measurement and a repeatable measurement for your reloads. And I will be offering these with the rifle builds that I do as well. So like I said, a 3-in-1 tool. It's probably the best tool you can make in the market, or get in the market, besides the Short Action Customs comparator. So that we'll be using that today. We have this press set up to basically bump back 2 to 3 thousandths. So I'm using case lube from Hornady. So unique case lube is what I'm using. This little tube right here. And I swear by this or the Imperial Sizing Wax. So put a little bit of case lube on there, run it through the full-length size and die. I do it twice, and then the second time I have a little dwell time and see exactly what that measurement is. This one's roughly 1/1000th bump, so we could set this back just a little bit, get about 2/1000th bump here at least. And there we go, 2/1000th bump. So I'll run these cases through here. Like I said, it's very repeatable using a finishing reamer as your comparator, or making a comparator out of your finishing reamer. And I've got about 30 cases to reload. Like I mentioned, we'll be using CCI 41 primers, and that's going to give us a pretty good SD number for my testing. The CCI 41 primers and the 450s is kind of what you need to use for this caliber. It mitigates the primer pocket cratering that you get on some of the loose primer pockets. And FYI, I will be going over listed max. Hornady does list the Lever Evolution at a lower charge, so don't follow what I'm doing without doing some load workup. Obviously, I will be going above 55,000 psi. Ideally, the accuracy node for this cartridge is around 30 grains, so that'll be listed over max. So we'll see what kind of performance we get. So let me prep this brass up, get it ready for seeing the bullets and everything, and show you guys the next process. Now, as far as the full-length size and die, this is a custom die that I make. I actually have a sizing reamer that is exactly matched to my chamber reamer. So this will actually size the case ideally 2/1000ths in all dimensions. And it does give a pretty good uniform sizing. The only downside to this die is I didn't really get the finish super smooth, so it does scuff the brass up a little bit. But that doesn't bother me. In fact, I do actually prefer a scuffed up piece of brass. It actually holds pressure a lot better and gives me a more uniform grip in the chamber wall. So that's what I got. Like I mentioned, I also do have a full-length size and die from Hornady. However, this does give a loose fitting inside my chamber, so it kind of sizes it too much. So ideally, my little custom size and die is the way to go. So now the cases are all full-length size. I use the Lyman Case Prep Center to do the majority of the actual case prep. So the first thing that I do is primer pocket uniforming, and that cuts off any of the excess material that's inside there, as well as clean up the carbon. And I then, on the first firing, give a nice VLD chamfer. This will get a more uniform bullet seating as well. So these cases all measure roughly about 1 or 2 thousandths of trim length, and it is nowhere near my trim length that I need to be, at 1.50. So I'm gonna let it grow a little bit and go ahead and prep about 50 of these cases here. Like I said, uniforming these things, and then using the VLD chamfer tool outside and inside as well. So that's pretty much it. After that, we'll seat some primers. So for priming, all I'm using is the Frankfurt Arsenal hand priming tool, by far one of the best tools out there. And like I said, CCI 41 primers, and it does a pretty good job. If I do large batches, I actually switch over to my Lee ACP press, and that one does very well on basically priming a bunch of brass. And I do have a case feeder on there. So here's one of the best things about this cartridge. It uses a ball powder, so we'll be starting out at 29 grains, and all I got to do is set this thing up to around 28.7 or 28.9, a little bit more, and then trickle up. And as far as the powder measure that I'm using, it's a cheap old Wowee scale. So I've been around for a long time, only $8, and honestly, this is giving me some really good performance. I can't complain. I know there's better scales out there, however, I just don't see the difference and advantage so far. Like I mentioned, I still get really good SDs. Again, this is just my experience. I'm only sharing it. You know, this is why I say, oh, there's a bunch of critics out there that say, yes, you definitely got to get a better scale. I haven't had a need to for what I do, target shooting and PRS and some long range stuff, ELR as well. This is all I use. I mean, the cheap old $8 scale. Love to see some testing done on this to see if a Prometheus scale versus an $8 scale makes that much of a difference. Like I mentioned, if I'm getting SDs of 5 and 6 and 3, I mean, that's good enough for me. Okay, so I got charges set up all the way to 31 grains. I'm using the Frankfurt Arsenal Universal Bullet Seating Die, as you can see here, right on top. And my max overall length is 2.300 case overall length that I measured. I got this thing set up to seat the bullet down 25 thousandths off my measured land point. So 2.750 is what we'll use, and after that we'll use the comparator and make sure everything is uniform. So all of these bullets are seated 25 thousandths off the jam point basically, and once we find an accuracy node on the powder charge, we will start playing around with bullet jump. So this is what I do. I start off at 25 thousandths and I'll work closer towards the lands, and if I don't find anything with the powder charge or things didn't get improved, then I work backwards. So using the bullet comparator, this is something I made as well. I took a 22 bushing and I actually reamed this thing out exactly 231, so it puts the bullet right at the lands there. And we'll set this thing to 0 and we'll see how uniform our bullet seating is. So this is a good test to see how consistent your neck tension is. You always want to go off your case-based ogive measurement when seating these bullets. Like this one here is about 1 thousandths, a little bit too much, instead of your case overall length. I mean, that really determines basically how much of your bullet is sitting inside the case. And what increases your SDs and your velocity deviation is two things. Your case neck tension is going to be one of the biggest factors, and then your bullet seating depth is going to be the second biggest factor. So if you could make those two variations or variables uniform as best as possible, you're going to get better results downrange on your chrono numbers. So you can see here, that's another thousandths off from the first one, which isn't bad. And I'm just going here seating all these bullets exactly and what it should feel like. I mean, I'm just kind of taking note to see if a case feels like the bullet's going in, you know, harder than normal, and the case-based ogive measurement is off. I actually marked that case just to see if that one will give me a flyer. So let me go ahead and seat the rest of these bullets here. Like I mentioned, 25 thousandths off the lands is where we're going to start, and we're going to start at 29 grains. So that one actually felt a little bit like it gave me a little bit more tension to seat the bullet, but the measurement there is pretty consistent. So right there at 0. So that's the last of the 29 grains. So the powder charges are going up in 0.3 grain increments all the way up to 31 grains. I'm hoping to hit max pressure, kind of see where it is on the max pressure of this rifle, and then kind of see what kind of velocity we're going to hit. I do know that we're going to be over 2,900 feet a second. So let me seat all these bullets here. As you can tell, everything is nice and uniform. That's the key thing. You can tell that I seat the bullet once, I turn the case, and then fully seat the second time. That helps out with concentricity. So giving little tips here and there. And you can see that case base to ogive measurements are all uniform. I'm barely getting a thousandth of deviation. Let's do one more here. So I seat the case about a quarter, spin the case, and fully seat it. That gives me a better concentricity on this cartridge. This one's about a thousandth or half a thousandth short, so still within acceptable specs. Alrighty, so let me finish all these up, and then we'll meet you guys at the range, and let's get some of these bullets on paper. Last one. Check that out. So the question will arise, some folks may ask, why don't I crimp my bullets? Honestly, if I'm trying to aim for precision on an AR cartridge or even a bolt gun, I'm one of the ones that just don't believe that a factory crimp die helps. I've done numerous testings, and in fact, what I found the factory crimp die to do is actually increase SD numbers. So, like I mentioned, what affects your SD numbers downrange as well as your accuracy is your neck tension and your bullet seating depth. So if you get a tool that will put uneven neck tension, or for instance start crimping around the neck, that in my opinion, and what I've seen as well in my testing, actually does make your SD numbers go way up. So how to determine if you need to use a factory crimp die? Well, the main reason why folks use it on the AR is they're scared of bullet setback, which will cause high peak pressures and possibly a detonation, or the bullet jumping forward on a recoil. Well, to determine if you need to use a factory crimp die or if you need to crimp your bullets at all, make a dummy round with your overall length. Like I said, here's a comparator here, and 2.270 or 75 is my overall length here, and then my comparator measurement is still at 0 here. Load up a dummy cartridge, put it in your magazine, and go ahead and send that bolt home. See if you have any bullet setback or bullet jump or any of that, and that will determine if you need to put a factory crimp on there. So here it is again here, and right back at 0. So there's your answer. Do I need a factory crimp die or factory crimp my bullets? For me and my rifle, no, I don't. So quick little tip there. So the next question I usually get is, should I anneal, and when should I anneal? The answer is yes, and every time. I like using the EP Annealer from EP Integrations. This is a very simple, affordable annealer, very easy to adjust. Put a link in the description below. But what I do is I start annealing after the second firing, and I anneal it every single time before I full length size or before I actually clean the brass. So this just came back from the range. Just went ahead and shot a bunch of this 6 arc for testing on the next video, and I'm over here annealing. So that'd be the first thing I do before I do anything else. So yes, I highly recommend annealing your brass to get a more uniform neck tension as well as bullet seating. So that's why I do this. My SD numbers continue to stay low, and it's because I anneal my brass. So highly recommend checking out the EP Integrations. Again, link in the description below. So folks, that's how I reload for an AR. And there may be an argument of, well, you don't really shoot a lot of ARs on your channel, so I mean, what do you know about reloading for an AR? Well, you would be wrong if I was to tell you that I actually shoot an AR quite often. I just don't bring out the cameras all the time. I actually go out there with my son quite often to have some fun and practice, actually. Don't mean to be a tactical style channel, but I do practice a lot of tactic work just for my own my own benefit. So I don't really bring out the cameras when I do that, just because I'm trying to focus on what I'm trying to accomplish and see if I could improve my time as well as my accuracy. And like I mentioned, this channel is not really a tactical style channel. However, like I mentioned, shooting an AR is one of my daily things that I do. having ability is a blessing. To have a range out in my backyard, you go through a crap ton of primers and ammunition, so that would be the caveat and downside to it. But reloading for an AR, it's, you know, the analogy of keep it simple, stupid. That's all essentially is basically all you got to do. Keep it simple. It's nothing. It's not science rocket or rocket surgery how to reload for an AR. It's all about consistency. Just like any kind of precision reloading, you want to be as consistent as possible, and certain tools like the headspace comparator as well as a bullet comparator will really help you out. Now, as far as expensive equipment, such as, you know, for instance, the RCBS Chargemaster, yeah, this will help you out, speed up you know, your reloading process. But honestly, a little Lyman brass smith and just a little quick trickle charger will get you by, and you can actually reload quite a bit of ammunition. And, you know, a Lee 4-hole turret press will get you by as well. I've actually used that quite often, and the Lee 4-hole turret press has given me some of the best accurate groups that I've ever shot. So there you have it, my reloading technique and basically what I do for reloading an AR. Comment below. I'm probably going to see a lot of critics. I'm always open for suggestions, feedback. As always, stay safe, and I'll catch y'all on the next video.